Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we apologize for the delay, but we now have a quorum on the dais, and so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I have one addition to the presentations, which will be an introduction to from Ms. She's ducking out Ms. Conlin Banco, and I'm going to remove the opioid task force update because the task force members weren't able to make it tonight, and I really want them to be sure to be here. So we'll just slip one in and one right out. So with that addition or change to the agenda, do I have a motion to approve the agenda with that change?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, a second from Commissioner Coleman. Before I ask for approval of the agenda, I do want to recognize the absence of Commissioner Paul Norfleet and Commissioner Tim Martin. Both of them struggled with the change of the dates. They already had previous plans, so we'll excuse their absence with our apologies for moving it to Tuesday, and thank you guys for all coming for this Tuesday night commission meeting. And with that, do I have an approval of the agenda? Do I have a vote? I have a motion and I didn't call for the actual vote, did I? Okay, I did. Y'all were confusing me there. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. We want to welcome Pastor Jack Andrews from Newberry First Baptist Church to the podium to give tonight's invocation. If you would, please all rise for the invocation and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to follow. Pastor Jack, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you here tonight, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Let's pray together. Father, we thank you today for allowing us to live in America. Thank you for our freedom. We thank you for those men and women who are in our military that protect those freedoms. I thank you for, Lord, our city. I thank you for placing us here in Florida, in our state, in our city of Newberry. Lord, thank you for our mayor and all our city councilmen, workers, Lord, and clerks, and our attorney, and just all the work here, Lord, in Newberry. I pray your blessings over Newberry. I pray for our citizens, Lord, for each home, family represented here in Newberry. Would you continue to bless Newberry and help us to always look to you and thank you and serve you. And God, thank you for your presence. And I ask you to bless the meeting tonight and all that goes on here. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Jack. We appreciate that invocation. Thank you, sir. Okay, and since we have removed the opioid task force update, we'll go ahead and slip the introduction of Ms. Banco in right to that slot first. So come on down, Ms. Banco. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing here tonight, and what you hope for.
Mayor Marlowe, commissioners, staff, and citizens of Newberry, thank you for having me tonight. My name is Conlin Banco. I am a candidate for the Alachua County School Board, and I'm here to let you know that I'm running, and I'm hopefully here to earn your vote. My campaign motto is to bank on Banco, and what I hope that says to you is that I could be a trusted voice for the children of Alachua County, all of the children of Alachua County. I'm a native Floridian. I'm from Yulee, Florida. I'm a Florida Gator. I have a bachelor's degree in finance and a master's degree in accounting. And my parents sent my sister and I out into the world with two charges: to be good and to do good work. And I think we've done pretty well. My sister and I run our small family business in Pearson, Florida. And my husband and I have 4 children who all attend our Alachua County Public Schools. And my daughter, we moved here when she started kindergarten, and she's getting ready to graduate from GHS this year. And I have been involved in their classrooms and volunteering on their campuses since Annalise was in kindergarten. But at some point, I realized that I could do more and I could give more to this community. So with a group of other PTA folks, we started the county council, the Alachua County Council of PTAs. And the way we did that, I took a little bit from my auditing background, because I strongly believe that if you're going to serve and help people, that you got to go to where they are. So we went to all 41 of our campuses, and it was the first time, I'll be honest, it was the first time I was here in Newberry, Florida. And growing up in Yulee, Florida, it felt a little bit like home. And walking into your campuses feels a little bit like home. Because I think our public schools are here for our kids to understand that they are valued members of society and to teach them how they can be a part of a community. And that is so clearly communicated in all 3 of your public schools here. Our work with the Alachua County Council of PTAs led to my being an integral part of getting the half-cent sales tax passed. I came before you when we were getting ready to pass that with April Griffin. And I thank the city of Newberry and its citizens for their support in that effort. And we look forward to what will be done here. And I hope that I'll be a board member that will ensure that we go forward with our promises to the taxpayers here in Newberry. You know, changes in local school policy aren't easy. But one thing I feel very strongly about is that you need to be able to build bridges and bring everybody together. I think there is no stronger stakeholder in our public schools than the cities themselves, especially in the locations of them. So I will tell you that you will not only see me in board meetings or in joint meetings, you will see me in your community. Because I think in order to serve you, I have to understand you, I have to know you, and you need to feel like you're a part of the Alachua County school system. And your leadership should show that. So what I'm going to tell you is that I am committed. I am committed to building the relationships that are necessary at the local level, at the state level, and at a national level to make sure that Alachua County school systems serve all kids, not only the ones that thrive, but also the ones that are struggling. And I will do whatever it takes and go wherever it takes to make sure that every kid feels like they are a valued member of our community and will end up being a well-adjusted, productive citizen. Because this is personal for me. I have 4 kids. That's what I want for my kids. And that's what I'd like to help bring to our Alachua County Public Schools. So I'm going to ask you all to bank on Banco and to allow me to be good and to do good work for the Alachua County Public School System.
Well, thank you, ma'am. If people have follow-up questions or want to get to know more about you, do you have a Facebook page or a website that they could go to?
We have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, and we have a website, votebanco.com.
Votebanco.com, that's the Facebook page and the website.
Well, Vote Banco is the website.
Is the website.
If you put in Bank on Banco, it will take you to the Facebook page or Instagram.
Okay, all right, thank
Okay.
you. Does the dais have any questions for candidate Banco? Commissioner Rick Coleman.
So you're from, you have business in Pearson, Florida?
Yes, sir.
You're in the fern business?
We are in the fern business, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
We're not growers, we're brokers.
Brokers?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. So we play, our, Newberry ends up being in the playoffs every year against Pearson Taylor.
Okay.
They're always really good in volleyball.
Yes. Yes.
I'm a DeLand High graduate,
Oh,
and my little sister is a Pearson Taylor graduate.
and my sister is a DeLand High graduate. I myself graduated from Fernandina Beach High School.
Gotcha.
That's good. Go Pirates.
If you can get me about 25 of your petition, I'll take those to my office and take that with me.
I would be honored. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, ma'am, for coming out and introducing yourselves, and please don't feel like you have to stay for the whole meeting. I know you got a big county to go campaign in, so if you need to get off and do it, that's perfectly fine. We're always welcome to stay and learn a little bit about what's going on in the city of Newberry if you have the time.
Well, I will sit right here. I'm
All right.
interested.
Thank you,
very
ma'am.
much.
And we do have one member of the opioid task force that showed up, but now, Ms. Glanzer, I've swapped that out since we didn't have very many people able to show up. So if you were here for that, we'll try to schedule the next time. I know you will. Okay. All right, and I think Jamie's going to take us through the Newberry Great American Cleanup Day. Always a great day.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. As we do every year, we're here requesting that the City of Newberry proclaim March 27th, 2020 as the Great American Cleanup Day. As you all are aware, every year we participate with Keep Alachua County Beautiful, the Great American Cleanup, and we sponsor a litter and tire roundup, and we'll have the household hazardous waste trailer here from the county, and we do basically a yard debris amnesty day. Friday, March 27th, and Saturday, March 28th, 8 to 5 o'clock. The litter and tire roundup will be at the Public Works compound. The household hazardous waste trailer will be there Saturday from 8 to 2. And we're asking that the citizens put all their yard debris out for us to pick up by the 29th, and we'll start picking that up the following Monday on the 30th.
Okay, so tires and hazardous debris, 27th and the 28th,
Yes.
and March 30th through April 1st, they'll have to put out any yard debris
They have to have their yard debris out by March 29th.
by March 29th.
We'll start picking it up on the 30th. We'll make one pass all the way through town on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of that week, and get everything that's been put out by the 29th.
And we still need residents to cut the yard debris into the appropriate,
As
lengths,
much as
as
possible.
they
It's
can.
not as rigid a standard as with our municipal solid waste provider, but we do ask that they stack it off of the edge of the road in the right-of-way, not on any fire hydrants, electric boxes, water meters, and such.
okay? And is there a limit to the tires that people can
6
bring?
tires is the maximum tires, and this is
Per
all
resident or per household?
per resident. And this is residential. It is limited to residential. Commercial entities are not allowed to bring tires. They're not allowed to bring hazardous waste. It's the county sponsors the
Tractor
hazardous.
tires or just,
If it's a residential quantity or a residential generation, they can accept it.
all right, there you go. Okay. Yeah,
Not legal, there's wires sticking out there.
all right. So are you looking for us to do that right now, or are you looking for a proclamation at the next meeting making it so?
Basically, we have a proclamation with this, and we're just requesting that you proclaim, set the date, basically, like we do every year.
All right. Questions, comments, or thoughts? Are you ready to set the date?
I
Commissioner
have a
Farnsworth.
question. Do you also take tire rims?
It's easier for us to dispose of the tires if they're off the rim.
But you will be taking rims also?
We encourage the citizens to remove them from the rim if possible.
And commissioners have to remove the rims. All right. Do I hear a motion from the commission to set the dates that are published on? I have a motion from Commissioner McKinley. I have a second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any last questions from the dais? Does the public have any questions on this proclamation? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, Jamie. And we have some fire department news. Chief, is this the first time you've come before us in 2020?
In 2020, it
Well,
is.
welcome, Happy New Year.
Starting it all over again. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Just a couple of, a few brief updates on some feel-good news that's happening in the fire department since, I actually started back in October, but since November of 2019, we've received a couple grants, and we also were able to partner with the American Red Cross for the smoke alarm program. Since about 2014, early 2015, one of my goals has been to try and get that smoke alarm program instituted in the city. We've attempted to partner with corporate partners, community partners, matching, non-matching grants. We just weren't real successful in getting anything accomplished. American Red Cross, Alachua County Fire Rescue, and ourselves were able to all partner up and institute that smoke alarm program. So in your package, you have just the smoke alarm request form. We will be posting this information on the city's website, just so the citizens that are at home listening or watching can, they understand. They can come to the fire station, receive the request form. It's a real quick form. They fill it out. We can replace smoke alarms. We will install the smoke alarms at no charge to the citizen. And as long as this program's in place, it actually resulted in a grant from KID Fire Equipment. They do smoke alarms, fire extinguishers and stuff like that. So that's where the grant originated from. Went through the American Red Cross. So we're real proud of that. That's a real feather in the cap of the community, providing that service to the community, because there are folks that are in need. In January of this year, we actually installed our first 5 smoke alarms.
That's awesome.
So we already have one resident that's utilized that program. One of the other, and that was a smoke alarm program. The other item, the other 2 items are grant items. One of our driver operators, Mike Mawson, he came to me several months back, said, "Hey Chief, you know, I was looking for some grants, and I came across this grant in New York." And I said, "Well, what are they going to give us money for?" He said, "Well, it's for training, advanced training, and, you know, we're sending people to paramedic school. We can also use it for fire operations training." I said, "Yeah, go ahead, give it a shot." Well, lo and behold, in December, we get a letter from the Community Foundation indicating that we've been awarded a $500 grant for advanced training.
Awesome.
And fire operations training. So we're going to utilize that for a portion of it for our paramedic training program, and another portion for getting some of our folks where they can work out of class, as we call it, higher training, so they can work a step up above where they're normally work.
So Chief, as part of that fireman's regular duties now, grant writing is, we're gonna put him on.
I wish, but not really. He was just bored that day, I guess. So, but no, driver operator Molson, this was something he initiated, and again, this came from the Community Foundation, and the Hero Fund America Fund, out of Utica, New York.
Awesome.
You know, we've actually already given that check to our finance director. So hopefully we'll see that on the next budget amendment you guys see.
Wonderful.
The third and final thing that, as far as grant goes, second grant that we received, January 2020, Mayor Marlowe, Manager New, myself, and 2 of firefighters from Newberry, Wesley Lewis and Tim Lewis, we attended the 2nd annual Grit Gala. During that event, Newberry Fire Department was awarded a $10,000 grant for the purchase of needed equipment, for whatever equipment we need. They have awarded us that grant. That grant was provided by an anonymous donor to facilitate the purchase of those equipment needs. Just a little bit about the Grit Foundation. As you guys remember, back in, I believe, early December, it may have been the latter part of November, you guys executed or authorized the mayor to execute that affiliation agreement with Grit. So, you know, that was, we were able to execute that agreement, and then immediately following that, a month and a half later, we were able to receive some funding through that foundation. But Grit is, at that particular gala that evening, they provided needs for various public safety entities, including ADA compliance on websites for, I believe it was Gilchrist County Sheriff's Office, canine police dogs to one other agency. They provided some funding to Alachua County Fire Rescue. So they're doing great things in the public safety arena. So we're real thankful for that. But we just wanted to come to you guys tonight and let you know those are some of the good things that are going on, and some things that are not everyday items that are somewhat feel good, and they're great for the community, and they're great for the service that we provide to the citizens.
Well, Chief, you are always welcome to come here and share some feel-good news. And that was a list of feel-good news. So please thank everybody over there at the fire department. Tell them what a great job. I mean, going out and looking for grants, that's above and beyond.
Right.
We appreciate it. That was a wonderful night at the Great Gala, hearing Newberry's name called out and seeing you guys up there collecting that check. That was awesome. So we appreciate them. We appreciate you guys. And let's make this a regular thing. Just keep on coming back. Yeah.
We'll do our best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Did the commissioner have any questions for the chief before he goes away? Commissioner McKinley.
Mr. Mayor, I was wondering if there was a program for at 3 a.m. when my fire alarm is starting to chirp. Is there a program where they'll come change that? Because I can't figure it out.
Yeah, that's a regular call, right?
It's called extra batteries. Just hang on to an extra battery.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
We appreciate you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we always provide an opportunity relatively early in our meetings for public comment. So if you have something that you want to announce, these are 2-minute announcements about upcoming events. If you have something more controversial you'd like to talk to the commission about, there's 5 minutes at the end of the night. So we'll do that at this time. Marlon, don't forget to introduce yourself. Welcome.
Welcome, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Thank
Nice
you for your
line,
time.
sir.
I am Marlon Day, Library Manager at the Newberry Branch Library with the Alachua County Library District. I wanted to remind you that on February the 22nd, AARP Tax Aid will be at the library to assist with taxes. That'll be from 10 to 2 on Saturday the 22nd, so a week from this Saturday. And on Thursday, February 27th, of course, is the Patrick Smith's A Land Remembered program. A reminder about that, it's going to start at 5 p.m. Both of these programs are very popular, and we're especially excited about the Patrick Smith program. We don't often get programs of that size at our library, so we're proud of that. And if you haven't read his book is set in South Florida, and it's about a cattle drive from the East Coast to the West Coast. And even though it's set in South Florida, it kind of resonates with all Floridians. And I think it's a nice historical book, and I think the program will be really nice, and it kind of ties in nicely with our 125th celebration this year.
Absolutely. And we were supposed to have the State of the City address last Thursday night. Unfortunately, decided to be a bit of a blow through town, so we had to, for the safety of our residents. But we were going to hand these out. We have some here tonight. On the back is a list of events that were going to happen, and The Land Remembered is February 27th. It's on this. If you haven't read the book, guys, it's a wonderful book. The opportunity to come out and meet and talk about it is tremendous. It's perfect with our 125-year celebration. So please put it on your calendar and show up. It's wonderful. I didn't mean to cut you off there, Marlon.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. I look forward to
Here's
seeing
one. Yeah.
that. So if y'all have any other questions, I'll be.
Any questions for Marlon? Commissioner Farnsworth.
I will say that The Land Remembered is one of the few books I have read, and it actually is an excellent book.
It is, yes. Thank you, sir. All right, Marlon, as always, doing great work. We appreciate you, sir. Any other public comments? Hearing none, we will move on to our consent agenda. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published. I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, second from Commissioner Farnsworth. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously, and we're on to public hearings and ordinances. Our first, no public hearings and ordinances. Our first agenda item is a proclamation calling for a regular election. Madam Clerk, do you have the proclamation, or do you just want me to read it into the record? Do you want to read it, or do you want me to read it? Go ahead. You got it right there in front of you. People get tired of hearing me talk. Look at that. We've got enough paper spread out here. Yes.
Okay, let me, it's quite lengthy, so,
I'll be glad to do it. If you, yes.
okay, here we go. Proclamation calling a regular election under and by virtue of the power vested in me as mayor of the city of Newberry, Florida. A general election is hereby called to be held in the city of Newberry, Florida on Tuesday, April 14th, 2020, for the following purpose. 1, elect 3 commissioners. Group 1, city commissioner to serve a 2-year term. B, Group 2, city commissioner to serve a 2-year term. And C, Group 3, city commissioner to serve a 2-year term. Item 2 would be the approval of charter revisions. And item 3 is the change in terms of service for the mayor and commissioners. The election shall be held at the City of Newberry Municipal Building, which is our Precinct 6, located at 25420 West Newberry Road, Newberry, Florida. And the polls shall be open at 7 a.m. on said day and closed at 7 p.m. on the same day. The clerks, deputy, and inspectors of said election are as follows. Fleda Harris as clerk, Patsy McElroy as assistant clerk, Ronald Osborne, deputy, Sharon Cheeseborough, inspector and ballot scanner, Pat Denham, inspector, Roger Griebing, inspector and ballot scanner, and Annetta McLeod, inspector. The candidate qualifying period begins at noon on Monday, March the 2nd, and ends at noon on Thursday, March the 12th, 2020. Candidates for the municipal election shall qualify for office with City Clerk Judy Rice at City Hall, located at 25440 West Newberry Road, Newberry, Florida, Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. until 5 p.m., except on Monday, March the 2nd, when qualifying begins at noon, and Thursday, March 12th, when qualifying ends at noon. The qualifying fee for the city commissioners is $107.51. The final day of registration or book closing for the municipal election, the registration books of the City of Newberry, Florida will be closed at 5 p.m. on Monday, March the 16th, 2020 for our municipal election. Given under my hand an official seal of the City of Newberry, Florida, this 11th.
What day is the 11th? Yeah, 11th.
The 11th, sorry, this 11th day.
Tuesday's throwing us all off here, I know.
This 11th day of February 2020, attested by the clerk of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, Judy S. Rice, City Clerk, and also by Jordan Morrow, Mayor. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Well done. Our election season is upon us. Hopefully, everybody is paying attention, and everybody who's thinking about it knows the dates. And you know, as always, we hope to have a nice, good, clean, wholesome election season in Newberry, as we generally do. So, looking forward to the season that is upon us, and congratulations at the new reduced rate of $107 to run. That's nice. Yeah, nice. Okay, and that will move us to electric net metering. And Mike, you are running this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, we discussed this at our last City Commission meeting, so I'll try to do something novel for me and be brief and be available for questions. There's an old saying about being brief, get in, get out. I'm no good at it, as you know. I guess first thing I'd cover is recommended action. We have a presentation. I'll probably be briefer than I was at our last presentation, and then potentially to give staff direction. So there aren't many options for for what we might do with our billing for net metering, but there'll be a few on the table for the dais to consider tonight, and we will take you through them, and if there's a will by the commission, we'll be happy to follow through with them. So there's a staff report that is prepared for you. I just point out that that as attachments to your staff report is the presentation I'm about to give, is the city's net metering tariff, which is the official document that the City Commission adopted in 2009 and is transmitted to the Florida Public Service Commission, is on file. So if someone wants to know how Newberry's electric tariffs, what they say, any of them, whether it's net metering or residential rates or commercial rates, they can go on the Public Service Commission's website and they can find Newberry's electric tariffs. And what makes Newberry as a municipal electric different from a privately owned electric utility is a privately owned electric utility has to get approval from the Florida Public Commission for their rates. Municipally operated electric systems receive approval at home from a local board that says this are the rates that are set for our residents. So you're way more approachable. If you're a Duke Energy customer and you want to complain about your rates, you can drive to Tallahassee and meet with this very formal board of the Public Service Commission. So, and then the last thing in here is just an article that we recently ran across. I actually ran across it between the presentation that we gave at the last meeting and now. It's a perspective about net metering and where it may be headed in the future, at least in the author's opinion. So again, I'll try to take us through the presentation and not dwell on it too much. looks different. Electric net metering, recommended action, as I've already covered, is to receive a presentation and provide direction. Can't stress enough, net metering is in theory, very simple concept, just gets complicated when you try to put it into practice. And you guys are all experts now. So just some background information about, self-generation. Started out that people might want to have a backup generator, produce their own energy to save money or for reliability purposes. And then in the 2000s, solar panels became more vogue, and the ability to push it back out onto the grid and make it usable for the utility service provider became more prevalent of an option. And then in 2009, 2005, the state of Florida adopted net metering laws requiring service providers to provide a net metering opportunity. In 2009, Newberry adopted its tariffs related to net metering program. We currently have 11 customers, and one of those customers is us, City of Newberry. We have solar system installed at Easton. Throughout the industry, the sizes for PV panels, solar panels, are referred to as Tier 1s, Tier 2s, and Tier 3. And Jamie reminds us that it's like going to Home Depot and buying a generator. Probably the common generator size that you may buy for your home is 5,000 or 6,500 kW. And you know that when you get that, it'll run the refrigerator and some fans and maybe some lights, but it won't carry your full house load. A 10 kW system gets closer to carrying your full house load, but it's not a large system. It's just maybe 2 of those Home Depot generators at your home. The next tier is more mid-size. It'll definitely carry your whole load. And Tier 3, of course, would be pretty large. And it is capped generally at about 2,000 kW, which is 2 megawatts. As a benchmark, City of Newberry's electric system is referred to as a 9 megawatt system. That's our that's our annual peak. So 2 megawatt system is about a quarter of our peak load on any given day during a year. That's a very large system. So to have a net metering PV system in Newberry, there are 3 requirements that you'd have to meet. The first one is an interconnect agreement, and that relates to how your system interfaces with our electric system. Things like if we have an outage on our system and our linemen begin to handle these de-energized wires, or they believe they're de-energized because we've had an outage, we don't want your system backfeeding to us, whether it's by generator or PV system. So this interconnect agreement makes sure you have the devices in place that will prevent your system from feeding back onto our system, protects our workers. We have different fees for these systems for this interconnect agreement depending on the size of your system, and we require our customers to carry liability insurance at various levels. The next thing that you would need to connect to the City of Newberry system is you'd have to get building permit approval through our building department to make sure the system complies with Florida Building Code. And the third thing that you would need is a tri-party net metering power purchase agreement. That's a mouthful, but that essentially refers to the billing, how we're going to handle the monetary and the energy kilowatt hours transfers between the city and the customer. And it's a tri-party agreement because we are in a relationship with the Florida Municipal Power Agency that says we will purchase our power exclusively from them. So the way our net metering program works is FMPA purchases any power that a customer pushes back out onto our grid. They purchase it from them, and we purchase it from FMPA and credit the customer for them. So it's a legal way of getting around our very binding agreements to purchase power from FMPA. So, and these tri-party net metering purchase power agreements, they reflect our tariffs. They refer to our tariffs and say, this is the agreement for which you'll be compensated for your energy. And as you know, our utility rates are subject to change from time to time. There's no guarantee that your water rates are going to be $2 per 1,000 gallons. There's no guarantee that our electric rates are going to be the same today as in 20 years from now. Tariffs change because our costs change, and all of our utility services are very cost-based. Whatever it costs us, we break it down over the units that we sell, and our costs change from time to time. Usually 1 to 2% a year would be a standard increase for water and wastewater rates. You see that every year. You'll also remember that our electric rates haven't changed. They've changed one time in 15 years. Newberry's tariff, this is what it looks like. If you look at it, sheet of paper, it's a 4-page document, and it's approved first by you guys, and then it's sent to the Florida Public Service Commission to be filed and to ensure that it meets the standard, an industry standard. They approve it to form. The table of contents are generally listed there. Those are the things that you will see in any tariff, or all of our tariffs. So the topic that becomes most confusing is the billing side of it. It's and I would just tell you there's a lack of uniformity in the industry as to how we handle billing. And Newberry is kind of in a minority for how we handle billing. So the industry standard would be something that you see at all of the IOUs because the state statutes require the IOUs to do it a certain way. Some of the co-ops, Clay Electric would be one, and some of the munis, City of Gainesville would be another, do it like the IOUs do it, is the industry standard. Other co-ops or other cities do it like we do. Example of that, Central Florida has the same billing practices we do for net metering, and City of Jacksonville Beach would be the same as we are, City of Bushnell. Most of the cities in all requirements do it the same way. So just a little bit, the confusion comes in over a term called net metering. Net metering has a very specific term in the industry, but in the statute is very broad, and I likened it in our last presentation to the difference between soda and Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is very specific, but we now have adopted it to speak to a very generic term. Same thing has happened with net metering, and it causes billing confusion, particularly in Newberry. So the central issue is essentially how are our customers being credited for the energy that they produce that exceeds what their current needs are in their home. And the terminology in this case really matters. There's the terminology net metering versus net billing. So if you get into the specifics of it, what we do is net billing versus net billing or dual metering versus net metering. But we comply with the statute which says net metering, just the terminology is confusing. So what our tariff says we'll do is net billing. And then we call our tariff a net metering tariff. Is everybody thoroughly
Clear as
confused?
mud, right?
Clear as mud. So this is kind of a difference of what goes on, and there's some more examples in there. But with net metering, there's one meter. It counts what goes in and what comes out. It nets out. It just takes the difference between in and out and multiplies it times our retail rate. So effectively, everything that's going out from the solar system onto our grid is getting credited at retail rates. That's the industry standard, and there's debate about whether that's equitable. And in that article we put out, it speaks to issues like if you're one side of the article would be why don't I get full credit for it going out the same as I get when it comes back in? The detractors to that would say, well, you don't provide all the services that the City of Newberry's electric system provides. You're only available to us when there's sun and whenever there's additional energy besides what you need in your home, whereas the City of Newberry's system is available 24/7 to as much energy as you could possibly consume. So there's a difference. I won't try to debate that. I'll just try to articulate the different sides of the agreement. So there's net metering and there's dual metering or net billing. We are the second. And I say that if I just get
Just
the
keep on
slides to
going.
print. So some useful definitions. We've covered this before. are things like avoided cost, which is the incremental cost to produce that next kilowatt hour of energy or obtain that next kilowatt hour energy. In our case, we would pay about 2 cents per kWh. There's wholesale, which is we take our total wholesale bill and divide it by the total amount of energies. That's typically 7 to 8 cents per kilowatt hour. There's retail costs that we sell, and for residential customers, that's usually 11 to 12 cents per kWh. And then there's hybrid systems. Ocala has a hybrid system where they're retailing somewhere close to wholesale, but they don't calculate it every month. They just say it's 7.5 cents, and that's it. Some years ago, GRU paid essentially 3 times retail with a program they called a feed-in tariff. So Newberry's tariff and how it looks is under true net metering, your billing is we just simply subtract utility and the exported solar energy from the utility energy in and multiply it times the retail rate, and there you have your bill. And it's more customer friendly or better economically for the customer. And those are examples of GRU, Clay Electric, Alachua, Duke Energy, FP&L, any private utility in the state of Florida. And then there's what the city of Newberry does with dual metering, where you take the utility energy and you multiply it times your retail rate, and then you subtract the exported solar energy times avoided cost, which, as we've already discussed, is usually about 20% of your retail rate. This is us, this is Central Florida Electric, and this is half a dozen other utilities in the state of Florida. So from a billing difference, here's a new slide that you haven't seen, but we're just going to kind of do the math and show what the differences would be. So for true net metering, this is an actual case of one of the utility systems in our, one of the PV systems on our system. So for this month, they purchased, or they had Newberry energy coming into their home, 1,219 kWhs. Their solar system, after it met their home needs, pushed out 434 kWhs. Our retail rate is 11.5 cents, and the avoided cost is 2.5 cents. So if you are net metering, true net metering, like Clay Electric or GRU, the net charge to that customer would be $90 for the month. With our billing system, doing the math, the net charge would be $129.34 a month. And I promise when I created these slides, that all lined up very nicely. You could see the math. And then the difference being $39. In this particular month, it was $39 more advantageous for the customer had he been in, or they been in, a net metering program versus a net billing or dual metering program. And so we've looked at, a year's worth of billing, and it turns out that for an average residential system, the cost is about $36 a month, the difference between net metering and net billing. So some comparisons. Scenario 1 there, the center column would be a net metering scenario. It'd probably been a good idea to identify that on the slide. Scenario 2 would be a net billing type system, but usually for scenario 1, they're a larger system that are designed to, they look at your annual energy consumption and they try to design a system that will match that almost exactly. Theory being, at the end of the year, you'd net out at zero and not have an energy bill. Scenario 2, the object is to never push 1 kilowatt hour onto the system. Try to meet as much of the customer's need as you can, but since you're only receiving avoided cost for any kilowatt that goes out, you don't want to do that. And so they're smaller systems. They're still beneficial to the customer, maybe take a longer period of time to pay off, but they're smaller systems. So incentivization is, it's a bigger incentive to go with a net metering program for customers than with the net billing system that we have. The impact to non-solar customers is obviously greater for scenario 1 and net metering. Your non-solar customers are picking up a bigger share of the cost that is being subsidized by the utility. And an example of that would be if I needed 1 more kilowatt hour today from FMPA, I would buy that at avoided cost. If it is pushed out by someone's PV system, I'm paying for it at retail cost if we have a net net metering program, which would be about 5 times higher. Now, in the end of the month, it's not a lot of money. It gets spread across all of our customers, but our non-solar customers are paying a small subsidy to benefit of our solar customers. Economic impact, generally you would say that a net metering program offers more incentives, and so it's something that looks greener and might be more inviting in terms of economic climate. And that's why a lot of cities select net metering, is they want to be green and they want to attract that type of development that likes green energy. It's a demonstration of forward thinking, much like installing an AMI system is a forward thinking concept for a city commission to take on. Another idea of a forward thinking city commission would be to say, we're not going to hold your utility deposits infinitely at no interest. If you're paying your bills on time, we're going to give you back your utility concept. So this commission has a history of doing novel forward thinking concepts here, and scenario 1, net metering, is more progressive and greener. This is a new slide. You guys have seen this article that came out. It's forwarded to me by staff. There's a couple of statements in there that I think made sense to me. I'm not trying to persuade the commission, but what I gathered from this article is that at least the authors of this article tend to think that it is time for the industry to move to a net billing practice, which doesn't incentivize solar. They think that we needed to incentivize solar 10 years ago, but we've done an adequate job, and if we continue the practice of net metering, the subsidies are going to get bigger and bigger, and it will make a real impact to retail customers. I'm not standing in judgment of that. I ran across that article, and I felt it was unbiased, and I wanted that to be kind of in your minds as you have this weighty decision. So again, simple theory, very complicated concept, and your consideration is, in my opinion, staff's opinion, are we satisfied with our current tariff as it relates to credit for solar energy exported to the utility grid, which is offering avoided costs for each kilowatt hour, or do we wish to modify our tariff and offer a different credit? It could be full retail, it could be wholesale, it could be some hybrid like the city of Ocala does. Those, I think, are the choices before you. I think what is not a choice is just because we were billing in error for 8 or 9 years, it's not a choice for staff to just say that's what the commission intended. Once we discovered that we were billing in error, it was incumbent upon staff to amend our billing practices to comport with what the commission in 2009 wanted and selected. And if the commission in 2020 wants to do something different, we'll be happy to write up those tariffs, bring it to you for consideration, and get them on file. And once all that happens, we would change our billing practices to comport with this commission's desire. So recommended actions, just to close with that, is receive a presentation, have discussion, and direct staff as appropriate. And I'm available for comments.
Okay. I understand this is a densely confusing topic. And while our manager, because we hired him for this level of expertise, clearly understands it, I understand that we probably have a lot of questions that if we sat here and asked them all night, we probably still may not understand it. I would like to offer what I believe is a solution to this issue, because while I absolutely agree with the manager's comments that our staff cannot simply ignore the fact that a 2009 commission voted for this tariff, I do think that since we've been billing in error for a decade, we have customers who are used to that bill. We have solar retailers who have customers here that they're looking at their bill and they're saying, this is how Newberry does it. I see it on their bill. So I believe that there is a hybrid solution here that would address the 10 residents that we have that this issue is for. And that is simply to say that we will create a tariff that will bill the residents in the manner of which they were billed for the last decade, but we will sunset that in a year from now, 5 years from now. So if you really want to go get solar, you'd have a year to go do that. After that, everybody, it will be on the tariff that we have now. And if you sell the house, that sunset doesn't go with the new owner. So we are talking about 10 residential customers here. We are not talking about a lot of money. And these 10 residential customers have built budgets and have absorbed debt based on what they believed, whether wrong or right, whose fault, I don't want to get into that. But for 11 years now, they've been paying under this structure. And I think that we owe them at least the opportunity to have that conversation. Commissioner Coleman.
So virtually what you're saying is they would be grandfathered in.
Sunsetted in. Sunsetted in. Very important,
Sunsetted.
different word.
But but what you're saying is only a year.
Well, that word grandfathered, as long as they live in that house, they'll have that billing cycle. They'll have that billing cycle.
Right, but there's no sunset on,
The sunset for new people to
Right.
come in would be 6 months, a year. And so that would be Newberry's way of incentivizing solar for a very short period of time. But it would also be Newberry's way of recognizing that some residents have,
right.
that's what they've been living under for the last 11 years. They'd be locked into that because they would have this sunset would be retroactively behind us.
I'm totally for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I am.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer an alternative to that. I would say a hybrid.
Is this gonna be, is this gonna
I
be
think
as
this
brief
is-
as the presentation?
I think this is clarity. I think this is offering clarity too.
Okay.
I would say that our current 11 customers get grandfathered in to a net metering program, which is what they'd been billed for in practice. And that tariff sunset in 10 years or when they sell the house. So it doesn't go on into infinity.
And what's the purpose of the 10-year period of time?
Well, some of them have a 10-year debt service or a 20-year debt service. So I would say that, but the only people eligible for this program would be our current users. If somebody buys solar tomorrow, he's under our current tariff, which is an avoided cost tariff. So we'd be looking out for the 10 people that did it under a perspective that it was supposed to be net metering like GRU. And we'd say you get 10 more years of it, and then after 10 years, everybody's on avoided cost.
Okay, as long as I have a head nod from legal that we can do that, then that's
And-
fine. And I believe we've had other legal advice that agrees that that's fine, because that's slightly different than my proposal.
It is slightly different. Your proposal is people would have a year to get in the program, and as I understood it, I didn't hear your sunset. They'd have a year to get in, and if they do it within the year, it doesn't sunset at all for them. But my proposal is that we sunset everybody in some time certain at the commission's discretion. I
But
would
it
also
wouldn't be open to new customers tomorrow. You put solar on your house tomorrow, you
It's
would be
avoided
at the avoided cost rate. That's what
Yes.
you're,
And yes, sir. And there is definitely, I think, something that we have, a contingency. There is a thought from the legal counsel that we've approached, and they are, in my opinion, experts in this area, that feel like the Public Service Commission might not approve this, that it is, in their opinion, something the Public Service Commission shouldn't approve, but their experience tells them that as long as we don't make a big deal about it, it may just fly right under the radar. And that was the terminology that they used for us, is you don't want to highlight it, you don't want to bring it to attention, just submit it and see what happens. So it could get bounced back as, we're not going to allow you to do that, but I think there's some likelihood that if we don't make a bunch of ado about it, it would fly through.
I thought that the whole purpose of the program was to avoid any potential conflict. So if you run this program and everyone who's already got solar can automatically be included in it, but you're opening up to anyone else for a year period, but if you get into the program in that period of time, you're locked into the net metering. Anyone after that year period of time is locked into the avoided cost metering. That voided that issue. I'm willing to move forward on either of those fronts, but my understanding of that conversation was for my proposal, not what you just said.
And
But-
we're here to,
But you understand this issue that more. So if you think that that's a stronger legal ground, that's fine. I think either of those plans get us to where we need to be. So, and I don't think we're gonna have a problem actually with either of them. So it's up to this, the real question is if you're leaning towards this, the question is, do you wanna offer it as an incentive for people moving for some period of time forward? Or do you just want to figure out a solution for the 10 residents and then everyone else is under the avoided cost metering? Commissioner McKinley.
I had the opportunity last night to sit at a table in Tallahassee with two of the FMPA representatives and anticipating tonight have this conversation. And in that conversation, I was completely in favor of us, and if I get the terminology, correct me if I get it wrong here, but with our existing 10, 11 counting Easton, continuing them on with net metering, sunsetting that in 10 years. And the reason why I was in favor of that is because the average homeowner in 2019 stays in their home 8.06 years.
See how good he's, I mean,
Wow.
And-
2 weeks, he's already throwing out stuff like that. That's just, yeah.
And so I don't feel like this is going to be a major blow to anyone that has already been in that system. If we say, you know, they stay in there and the net metering, am I correct with that term?
Correct.
Net metering for 10 years, and then it sunsets out, and then they will go to net billing. The only thing that I see with this, and Mike, this is something I didn't think of, what about people that are building right now, that they are under that impression? And so I think from here on out, anyone that enters that program needs to come in under net billing unless they've already got an application into the city. And if they do, then we may have to grandfather them in for the net metering for 10 years.
I think that's a great thought. I think it's perfectly doable. We get about one application a year. It's not like, you know, that we're getting 30 a day and we try to figure out where the cutoff should be. We get about one a year. They take a little bit of time to size and plan and things of that nature. So if we got some applications in, we'll know it and we'll set the sunset. Again, you got to approve all that. There'll be another hearing if you say this is what we're going to move forward. Actually, there'll be two because we adopt tariffs by ordinance. So this would take 2 public hearings, but we will come up with a solution for when the cutoff date is for grandfathering. And then sunset date is again the commission's discretion. Someone suggested when you sell a house, 10 years seem to be good because I think that's a fair period to give it, but the commission may say we want 5, we want 15, we want 20. Those are the types of things that the commission probably has a better pulse on residents than staff does.
Commissioner Coleman.
So, the debt service on these usually is around 10 years, you know, when they go to put it in. You know.
The ones
I
that
wanted
I've
to
looked at
cover-
were like 20. The ones that I looked at were longer than that, but it's been a while since I looked at that. So I take the managers, if he says the average is 10, I think we have someone in the industry today that might be able to answer that question.
Some
But
people-
finish your comment first. and
Well, I
we'll-
mean, we have one family that's in here right now that's, I do know that theirs is at 20 years. You know.
Well, and that, you know, in my original proposal, that took that into account. We run a net metering program to incentivize solar for 6 months. Everyone who has solar is locked into the net metering. After that, then everybody, that gives 6 months to communicate to folks who are selling solar systems that because we use this terminology and then there's not a whole lot of follow-up questions. So I've talked to 2 or 3 solar installers that all are still actively telling customers or advertising that Newberry net meters, and there's an economic advantage here. And they all were surprised to hear that Newberry doesn't net meter. It's no different than the realtors who tell everybody we're paving the roads next week, you know? And I don't think that that's malice from them. It's somewhere somebody said, oh, I heard that roads are gonna be paved, and they're just pass that on. And in this case, we have 11 years of billing data that would support the solar installers telling the residents, the potential customers that. So they say, yeah, look at my last customer that I did, look at their bill. So in my mind, if you run an incentive program that everyone who already has solar is involved in, and you sunset that, you say that program is over in 6 months, or that program's over in a year, but if you're locked in, you get net metering we're still probably talking about the 10 customers we have, maybe one person jumps on board. So it's not going, of course, 6 months, it would only be one person, because that's a hard thing to plan. So.
I got one more. I heard Mike say that the ones that don't have solar, that they're taking, what's the cost of, you probably don't have the cost, but if, here you got 10 customers that got solar, and then the other FAMP or Newberry customers are making up the difference, what is that?
About $36 per customer a month. So for 10 customers, $36.
One, we have some larger systems, so that was the average residential system, but it would be, 10 customers times 36, $360 a month divided by 2,000 customers. In my estimation, we're talking about pennies to dimes a month. Mm-hmm. The more solar you take on, which is kind of what the article is cautioning about, it may not be an unfair burden today, pennies on the dollar, but the higher your uptake rate, it's going to become more and more. And to the author's point is, it's typically your lower socioeconomic people that don't have solar, and your folks with a higher income that do have solar. So what you end up with is a discrepancy where your lower guys are paying more, and the guys that have solar that could afford it to put in solar panels are getting the benefit of that. Right. But my honest belief is, I haven't done the analysis, but that we're talking pennies and dimes a month, and not dollars and tens of dollars and hundreds of dollars.
Okay. Which is why I'm comfortable talking about running a program. I mean, it's in a program, but for a short period of time. I do not believe it's necessarily in the city's best interest to heavily incentivize and encourage people for rooftop solar. I think the solar farms, I think we absolutely, which we are already participating in, I think that is a good program. If people want to go solar, I think that's everybody's home and personal decision. But this is a situation where we have to recognize that for 11 years, we've been billing this incorrectly, and people have made decisions based on that. So that is what makes me feel like we have some responsibility here to address these 10 residents. I know we have 11 customers, but these 10 residents. Again, I don't believe, nobody that's here now was there in 2009. And so this is not to cast aspersions on anybody. I applaud our staff for finding it. I think they handled it well. I think this is the process that should absolutely happen. But I think the solution that we're talking about tonight is also fair, given the situation that we find ourselves in. Commissioner McKinley.
I just think there's a happy medium for the customer, and as far as I know, I think there's one customer here tonight to speak at this, maybe two? Okay. There's a happy medium here, and I mean, I threw 10 years out there, but I know this is getting personal, but if they made that decision on that, I'm willing to make a decision on the length of that sunset.
20 years?
But I would like to know. Right. I mean, I don't know if they've been paying on it 3 years, 4 years, I don't know. But right. I think there's a happy medium in this, and I'm willing to hear that, to make a decision on that. But I still think there needs to be a sunset at the end of this.
So we could go with the manager's proposal, changed, the only thing we changed is 20 years. And that would be that would be the happy medium. But let's hear from are we ready to hear from the residents who want to speak to the conversation tonight?
How are y'all doing? My name is Chris Monk, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I appreciate y'all listening to this presentation and taking this into consideration. And Commissioner McKinley, I agree exactly with what you're saying. And as far as the number of people, if they move out in 8 years on average, even if you extended it out 20 years, if people are moving out, they're not going to fall under that. So you're not extending as far as bringing more people in. So if people are leaving in 8 years, then that's fine. It shouldn't matter as far as if you extend it to 15 years or 20 years. I ask that you extend it to 20 years if y'all would do that. It would allow me the opportunity to be able to pay it off. If other people move, we've been here a lot longer than the 8 years. My wife and I, in our current house, we've been here for over 12 years. We plan on staying here, a long time. I would like to be able to pay this off. I'm not planning on moving. Newberry's my home. I'd like to stay that way. And if you agreed to do that, it would allow us to be able to stay and do the things that we want to do and continue to stay here in Newberry. So, thank you.
Other residents?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Barry Jacobson, I'm President of Solar Impact, Inc. I appreciate this discussion. I appreciate Mr. New inviting me to come in last month to discuss this issue and the presentations. The one thing that hasn't been mentioned is, and I appreciate that you guys have been very specific in your language. What you're offering currently is dual metering. I don't know if you guys are aware that net metering is legally required by the Florida statutes. I'm not litigious, I'm not threatening a lawsuit, but I truly believe that not offering net metering is illegal in Florida. So that's a part. And as Mr. New pointed out in our earlier discussions, we're talking tens of dollars here. Solar, rooftop solar, people talk, in Hawaii, half the people have it. We're not Hawaii. The incentives are dropping off. So I believe, first, it's legally the right thing to do. I think it's good for the city of Newberry. I think, Mr. New referenced being progressive, that if you have one business that doesn't come to Newberry because of this, I think you've lost. So for those reasons, I would encourage you to offer what's legally required, which is net metering. So, thank you. And to the question that was asked, how long does it take people to pay it off? It depends on when you bought your system. People who bought 10 years ago, it's probably 20 years.
Yeah.
So, thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here tonight. Other public comment, other residents? Don't have to if you don't want to. That's fine. Okay, then I'll come back to the dais. So the last proposal was the manager's proposal, making it a 20-year sunset instead of a 10-year sunset. Commission thoughts? Commissioner Farnsworth.
I'm okay with that, but since you brought that up, do we need to look at the legality of dual metering versus net metering?
Well, I've sat in a lot of meetings with attorneys. I feel like we're on pretty firm legal ground with the way that we're doing it. This is an industry standard way of doing it. We are not the only, our actual current tariff system we're not the only ones doing it that way. I would say that the term net metering, which is, I think, the source of this confusion, is a term that applies to a whole lot of different ways to go about it. And so people use net metering, and a lot of people have a lot of different ideas of what that phrase means. So not to argue, he knows this business more than I do, but the attorneys know the realities more than I do, and we've been on firm footing with this since 2009. So for me, this issue is about, the mix-up here that we've had. That's really what this issue is about. So I'm fine with the city manager's suggestion, because that takes care of the 10 customers that entered into this with a different thought in their head. It means that nobody else would enter into this moving forward. And so that would be the only other consideration that would come into this. But I think the 20 years that solves our 10 residents who find themselves in this predicament.
Yeah, I'm okay with what the city manager proposed with a 20-year sunset.
Okay? Other, Commissioner McKinley?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what you just said about the term net metering. I don't think it's by happenstance that the last 2 days I've had the opportunity to ask a lot of questions about this. And I feel very confident, and I would just say to the dais that I feel very confident in that this is legal. And I'm certainly no lawyer, but I sat at a table last night with those that know this business, and we are not the only community that is having to deal with this right now. This is not unique to Newberry. I think this is going to be something that happens in a lot of communities, and it's already happening in many communities. So I'm in favor of for the current customers, a 20-year sunset. Anybody else coming on board, they will just fall into net billing.
Okay. Other thoughts from the dais? So, Commissioner Coleman?
City manager said 10, and is there a reason? I mean, are we losing anything going 20? I mean, is there any problem with that? Just want to know.
Well, you're losing that revenue for an extra 10 years from those 10 customers.
For 10 customers.
That's exactly right. I guess 10 initially came to me thinking that, and I may have misspoke, I believe that the average debt service was 20 years, and I thought this was kind of splitting the difference and giving credit for however many years you financed it ahead of time. But I think if I were in y'all's shoes, I see 20 as being very appealing. Staff certainly takes no exception to it. We're happy to do whatever you direct, and if 20 makes this board feel more comfortable, it makes staff feel more comfortable.
Okay. So what staff needs from us tonight is a motion to direct staff to prepare an ordinance that will encompass all of the conversation here tonight. I'm not even going to try to formulate what the wording of that ordinance will be. So
Correct.
we want to direct staff to create an ordinance that will allow these existing solar customers to be sunsetted into a program. And I'm not even going to try to throw, because if I just say net metering, that would mean anything of 6 different things. But staff understands what you mean. One more question, Commissioner Farnsworth.
Is there going to be a problem to star these 10 houses so that you'll know whenever they're sold? Or
My standard answer to that is don't run multiple tariffs. It becomes too confusing for staff. But I would tell you that, we segregate customers today by residential, general services, commercial, demand commercial. We certainly have the ability to say you're this type of customer. So in this case, we'll have a net metering tariff 1 and a net metering tariff 2. These 10 will get one of those designations, and everybody else that comes on board would get the second. The big challenge for staff is putting some sort of flag in our system 20 years from now, 19 years from now, that gives a 1-year notice that, hey, all this is sunsetting in 1 year and your billing will change, so that people are adequately noticed, which was a huge failure on our part earlier when this began to happen. And then a second flag when it's over with, send that second notice and saying it's been 20 years, 240 months, and now you're moving over to net metering 1 billing rate and moving forward with it.
I mean, that's one of the problems that we have, is that commissioners, mayors change, managers change, and things that we
Set an
put
alarm on
into
your
law.
iPhone.
Huh?
We'll set an alarm on our iPhone.
And,
Yeah.
and just a reminder to the commission that because this is a tariff and an ordinance, a future commission could change it. I'm not saying they would. I would think they would respect your decision, as respectful as I hear you are about prior commission's decisions. But one thing I think that we should always own in the utility business is that tariffs change, they don't last forever, and that all of our customers, when they're making decisions, need to be aware of that. We just can't promise what our costs will be in some time in the future, and to guarantee a rate. What we're guaranteeing is a billing structure, actually.
Well, I will go ahead and propose or put into motion to follow the staff recommendation.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth. I have a second from Commissioner McKinley. Okay, I have a motion properly second. Any more discussion from the dais on the motion on the floor? Does the public have any conversation on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, and that takes us to comments. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, as you know, I've spent the last 2 days in Tallahassee, and I thought it was a great trip, but we came in late, and I didn't get to spend my afternoon pondering all of the usual list of comments, so I'm going to defer my comments tonight.
Wow, I'm taken off guard. Yeah, I know. I had 10 minutes of email checking time. No, I'm just kidding. Mr. Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, I know you're studying, you're going to all of the Charter Review Commission meetings for Alachua County. We're looking at that very closely, including the proposal that may go on the ballot as to the county's ability to supersede the local city's jurisdiction when lands are annexed, future annexations are brought into the cities. The proposal is that the county's land development would remain, and their jurisdiction would remain on those properties, even though they are in the city's ambit, been brought in or annexed into the cities. So we're following that very closely, and we'll continue to follow that. I know you have executed a letter to our local legislative delegation on this issue, and I'm interested to hear how the meetings went in Tallahassee, so we'll be talking about that down the road, but that's something to let you all know that staff and your mayor is following this issue very closely.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate that. Madam Clerk?
I do. We have a facility workshop scheduled for next Tuesday night, February the 18th at 7 p.m.
Right here in City Hall?
Right here at City
Awesome.
Hall.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And I'm looking forward to working with our community during the 2020 municipal election. And if anyone has any questions or concerns, please contact me here at City Hall at 352-472-2161 extension 7. And that would be, and I'd like to recognize my staff member, Sierra Cross White, and tell her happy work anniversary today.
Awesome. Has it been a year already?
A year.
Wow, where does time fly? Seems like you just graduated high school 6 months ago. How'd that happen? All right. If you're thinking about running, folks, Miss Judy, our clerk, is absolutely wonderful. Get with her early and often, and she will walk you through the process and make sure you're doing everything the way you're supposed to do it. All right. Is that it, Madam Clerk? Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Coleman?
Last week, the mayor appointed me as, well, it wasn't last week, but last week was my first meeting for the Watermelon Festival, and those girls work. I'm gonna tell you, and I'm gonna sit off to the back, and I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. Well, when you got 9 women, they drug me right in the middle of this thing. But some things, it's gonna be, with it being their 75th, or our 75th Watermelon Festival, and our 125th for the city. K-Country's doing some stuff. Y'all just, I don't know if I'm allowed to bring it up yet, but it's gonna be twice the size it was. It's gonna be big, y'all. My next thing is I'm hoping that ASO is gonna get involved. Hey, Becky. The whole thing is that with the Christmas parade, what happened there, for each road that's going down, I don't know if we can get the Lions Club involved for the parade, adults, to be there with with their vest or something, so that these people just don't fly out there in the middle of the road like they do. I mean, that was a bad thing. Could have got bad. And so they are going to be looking for volunteers for each road this time. And I don't know the situation with ASO, if they're going to be involved more this time, but sure would appreciate if they would.
Well, and Commissioner Coleman, if you could use your role as liaison to that board to ensure that you and one or two of them sit down with our staff early and have a conversation about what it's going to look like. But we will more, I know our staff is more than willing to be engaged and help, but sometimes we have communication problems about knowing who's doing, who's supposed to be doing what until the morning of the parade. And so, but that's where you're going to come in and be our hero.
Well, you didn't see the text they gave me. I got all kind of other.
Oh, you're still going. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But no,
I know you're going to be out there chopping the watermelons.
No chopping watermelons. No, I got to go back and gain my, watermelon spitting contest championship. So, but that's it. But like I said, I did not know there was so many things that they have to cross the T's and dot the I's to get this thing done. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I might be bringing a lot of y'all in to help here. But that's all I got.
Thank you, sir. And we are here to help, and thank you for serving on that board, because this is your busy time, so I know it's a task on you. Commissioner McKinley.
No one asked me to say this, but I just want to say publicly how much I appreciate Mayor Marlowe and City Manager New and Brian Thomas just advocating for the city of Newberry this week. It was an eye-opening experience for me. As you know, I'm trying to use these 3 months to submerge myself in all things Newberry, and I appreciate the opportunity to be included in that, but I appreciate you guys and for what you've done this week for Newberry. I also want to say, and this will probably catch him off guard, but Mr. Mayor, after you took us on a tour of some of the historical sites of Newberry, I was so impressed, and I hesitate bringing it up because it's not open to the public, but I guess I did exercise my authority in this. I was so impressed with the old power plant that I went and asked Jamie to give me and a couple of my staff members just a little tour of it because I was so impressed with it. And little did I know that he was such the historian. And I was thoroughly impressed. And I just wanted to say thank you for the tour. And you're a hidden gem in Newberry. I love it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for being up there. You did 2 days. I only did one, so we appreciate all that you're doing, stepping in and helping us out here to get to the election. And Mr. Jones is he's a man of many hats. You know, you just got to keep talking with him and find out all the things he knows. But it's interesting you brought up the power plant because for 2 or 3 years now, the city manager's had a plan of how do we get in there and renovate that and restore it and bring it back to its glory. So I'd love to see that project move forward. I know we got a lot on our plate, but it is, if you've ever gone in there, it's just a cool building, you know. And we'd obviously have to make a way to figure out how to make it open to the public so we can get in there. But I think it'd make a great office for Jamie to sit in, you know. If he ever gets to sit, I don't know.
I would love for our friends at FMPA, and I would just love for them to see that restored. I just think that would be such a neat experience.
And I'd love to get a grant from FMPA to do it. I think that'd be great.
Mr. Mayor, we've had several conversations with FMPA about obtaining grants. They're not really a grant source, but the American Public Power Association is a candidate. We've had conversations with them. Also, the manufacturer of the diesel generator that's down there, who Fairbanks Morse, it was escaping me. We've had conversations with them. A thought or a vision that I have is converting it into a museum that tells the story of Newberry's history, how we got in the public power business, which is essentially none of the for-profit companies felt like there was enough of a profit to be made in Newberry, and if it was meant to be, it was up to me, and the city of Newberry had to go their own way to get power. So, which is, Newberry's story in a lot of things. So Newberry decided, we're going to be in the power business, we'll do it ourselves. They bought a generator, they got it installed. So I think it'd be great to tell the story of Newberry's history, but also, if we're going to get funding from a Fairbanks Morse and APPA, just tell the history of public power overall and make it a walk-through, self-guided tour and showcase that gym as one of you referred to it. It is a beautiful building. I'd love to turn it into something that the public can utilize to learn more about our history.
Well, I hear Monty helped put it together down there, didn't you?
You were a bricklayer down there? Commissioner Farnsworth?
I remember going into it many years ago, and that's my only memory of it. But I think in our last budget, one of the proposals was putting some money towards it, but and I was the only one that really wanted that, but because I knew what kind of a gym it was. But anyhow, maybe in the future we can get it restored.
Do you have any other comments?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Farnsworth. Well, folks, as you know, we weren't able to have our State of the City last Thursday. We had that windstorm that came through. It was a tough call for us to make. I want to thank the staff. They did an absolutely amazing job of decorating that municipal building, repairing it. I want to thank all of the food vendors, Young's Kitchen, I'm going to say Boss Hog, that's wrong, Top Hog, I always call them Boss Hog, Woodyard Grill, Villaggio's. They were all ready to come and feed the folks for free. We had a birthday celebration to kick off, so it really was a tough call, but I'm proud of our staff, and I'm proud of the commission. We will never endanger the lives of our residents, encourage them to come out in a storm like that. As much as I wanted to brag on Newberry in person to them, we put their safety first. And unfortunately, looking forward in the calendar, there's simply not another night where we would not be conflicting and competing with other organizations in Newberry that are trying to host things. So we made the decision that this year's State of the City will be broadcast virtually. And it will premiere on our YouTube page, and it will premiere on our Facebook page. I hope everybody takes, it is about 19 minutes, but I think it's a good 19 minutes to hear about everything that's happened, everything that's going on in the city of Newberry, what we're working on in the future. I really miss it, especially on our birthday year, but I do believe in my heart it was the right call to make. And we have a lot of events to celebrate this year. So please, before you leave, pick up one of these. We'll be making sure everybody knows it. Come out to the other things all year long and just celebrate our birthday together. Everyone else has already talked about the legislative days, but I think it was a successful trip to Tallahassee. I want to thank Representative Clovis Watson, Representative Chuck Clemens, Senator Keith Perry. We have a strong delegation up there that really, truly does know what's going on in the city of Newberry, and they're working hard for us. And we hope to have some very exciting things to announce at the end of this session in a few weeks' time that will be coming back to our city. The city attorney discussed the Alachua County Charter Review Commission, which is an ongoing challenge for all the municipalities. The CRC is suggesting to do some things that would strip the cities of home rule. And because of that, I would like to ask the commission to direct staff to bring back to the next commission meeting, or maybe 2 commission meetings, depending on how much staff time is needed. We have until November for this to be decided. I believe that the CRC is going to move forward with this issue of giving the county commission total power over all future annexations. Therefore, I believe that it is in everybody's best interest, especially those that like what's going on in the city of Newberry and want to be a part of it, to join the city of Newberry now so that they would solely be governed under the city of Newberry. I would suggest, therefore, we direct staff to reach out to every single enclave, identify pockets around Newberry that we think would want to be in Newberry, and let's make a concerted effort to get those annexations done now. As part of that, I would ask us to waive the fees associated with that. Really, the only fee, we already waive our internal fees. The only fee that we charge is the advertising fees. The advertising fees, if we group people together, are negligible. If you're trying to annex yourself 1 acre, it's $1,500, but it's also $1,500 if we're annexing 100 people. So I think it's a no-brainer financially for us to do that. If we bring them into the city, certainly future tax revenues pay for that. And this may be their last chance to come into the city of Newberry and be governed by the city of Newberry. So I'd like staff to come to us maybe in 2 meetings, give plenty of time to figure out what it is we're talking about. Let's get some numbers about what that actually looks like so you guys can make a data-driven decision. But I think we need to do this sooner rather than later because we're running out of time. I would suggest we just did the referendum for the 600 acres on the west side of town. I'm not suggesting another referendum, but I am suggesting another program where we actively reach out to people, bring them in, have conversations. You know, I have no problem hosting a few community gatherings where we advocate and tell people we can show the meetings of the CRC, what they're talking about, where they want to go, so that everybody has a full picture of what's in front of us. Commissioner Farnsworth?
That's exactly how Newberry got as big as it is now, because they tried that before, and we had a massive annexation into the city because people don't want to be part of the county under their rules. So hopefully people will realize that and come on to the city again.
While I stand against the threat of what they're charging, this is going to be really good time to explain to people why they need to come in under the umbrella. Commissioner Coleman.
Is there any way we can draft a letter too and have all the commissioners sign it, and our disapproval of just throwing single-member districts under the table like they did that night?
I have verbally delivered that letter to the CRC, so I don't see a problem with drafting a letter. You know, I think procedurally, that was it was a disingenuous move.
Yes.
Because all we were asking for was the opportunity to come back again and make a presentation on why our residents want that. So what the CRC did was basically deny us an opportunity to have a real conversation about single-member districts. Now, if you can make sense of the procedures that they're using, then I think it falls in their ability to deny residents the chance to talk. But we can certainly, I don't mind drafting that letter and sending it to them and just expressing our disappointment in the fact that the single biggest issue that residents have asked to have a conversation about, they declined to have a conversation. I need 2 other head shakes to draft that letter. Okay? All right. And then finally on April 4th, you'll bring back that in 2 meetings time for the annexation. On April 4th, there's a lot of things going on in the city of Newberry on April 4th. In the morning, there will be a soil collection ceremony. The city of Newberry is the very first city in the state of Florida to form a partnership with the Equal Justice Institute. One of the programs that the Equal Justice Institute runs is a soil collection to commemorate and memorialize the victims of lynchings. So they will take soil from Newberry back to Montgomery, Alabama, where those victims will be recognized for all and forever. That will happen, I believe, at 10:30 in the morning. We're still working out the ceremony, but it will be a morning event. In the afternoon of April 4th, we will celebrate on Panther football field Newberry's 100% graduation rate. So it's going to be a big day in Newberry. I'd love for you to come out to both of those events. Put them on your calendar now. Just block out the day for Newberry. We got lots of restaurants here. You can, go to the morning ceremony, have lunch, and of course at the ceremony on the 4th for the 100%, there's going to be food trucks there. All the food is going to be free. There'll be live entertainment. We just want you to come out and have a good time and celebrate what these kids have achieved, because it's really the achievement of the students, 100% graduation rate. Never been done before in Alachua County. So that concludes my comments. Public comment.
Mayor, commissioners, staff, my name is Rick McNeil. I'm a retired educator, and I have moved to Alachua County about 10 years ago. And like you, Commissioner Coleman, I got sucked into the schools and a bunch of women and PTAs, and they said, can you do this? Can you run the morning mile? This thing, that thing. And so anyhow, I volunteered, and it just so happened that Conlin Banco was the president of the PTA at J.J. Finley, where my grandchildren go to school, and her children were at that school. And she sucked me into this world of doing for kids in Alachua County. And so anyhow, in that process and being a part of the Alachua County Council of PTAs, we visited all of the schools. And coming to Newberry, one of the things that we really found was the sense of family and community and caring for kids. And we were just super impressed with some of the programs and partnerships with local businesses. And so tonight, this is my first commission meeting here in Newberry, and I noticed such a sense of caring for the residents. 10 residents are important. Each one of them is important, and y'all showed that tonight. Tonight, Jordan Marlowe and Joy Glanzer had a little reception for Conlin Banco across the street. You probably saw all of the signs and paraphernalia that we had there. Anyhow, Joy Glanzer doesn't want all of those signs in her yard, and so she would like for any of you to please come and take one of those home and purpose it somewhere else. Anyhow, thank y'all very much. This has been most enjoyable.
Thank you for those kind words, sir. Other public comment? Hearing none, we are adjourned.